Everyone, good morning. Thank you so much for your patience. We are going to get ready to get started. We are live. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Take out your phones real quick and go to either Facebook or Twitter and just share the live real quick. A little bit different for me today in a live audience. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to, I guess I would say, my co-host this morning. She's a young woman that I've known for many, many years. She is the host of R&B and Chill, which is on Spark FM Online. She is a community advocate. She is an activist. A lot of people may know her in the entertainment industry here in Boston, but she has roots working in the community. And so I would like to present to some, and she is someone that what's the word? I'm going to make sure I introduce you right, because she got me the other night at the Beckma event. Let's introduce or give a hand to Chanel Remy, who is going to be our host and set some context to why we're here today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here for the very first in-person recording of Java with Jimmy. You all are so used to just getting on, logging on to Facebook and having us welcome us into the Java Cafe. That's actually a highlight of my morning when I'm able to hop on in the mornings. How many of you that are here with us today catch him in the mornings? And yes, hands up all over the room. We love us some Java with Jimmy. So it's an absolute pleasure for me to be able to get him to sit on the opposite side of the microphone this morning as we all join here at the Underground Cafe right in the heart of the city of Boston. As he did say, I go by the name of Chanel Remy. That is my radio moniker. My government name is Latoya. I'm the Director of Operations at Alternatives for Community and Environment. We're all about environmental justice.
I told y'all.
Yes, there's a little bit of duality there, but many people know me as Chanel Remy or Remy in the city. So what's up, Java with Jimmy? We gonna do this?
We are going to do this. It's going to be very interesting being on. I think Danielle did this once, but this is my second time being interviewed, and so I just asked her, please do not make me cry. That y'all know that. Watch it at the drop of a pin, I'll start crying. So go ahead, Remy.
Okay, well, as a lifetime resident of the city of Boston, it's refreshing to have a media platform that truly centers the matters of our community, our city, and our people. It's an absolute destination to head to the Java with Jimmy Facebook page as he welcomes us into the Java Cafe and catch the topic of the day and the amazing guests that join you in the dynamic conversations that you create. So I do want to start off with this. What actually inspired you to create Java with Jimmy?
It was, and many of you know this, it was the day, watching what was going on with the pandemic, the day Governor Baker said that we needed to stay in the house. I had knew what we wound up seeing demonstrated, the issues that were exacerbated in Black and brown communities. And so I grabbed a cup of coffee. I've been known to kind of go live here and there and kind of go off and say stuff. I see Chief shaking his head. And so at the end of that, my mother asked, like 50 people came into the room, and my mother asked one question, and she said, will you be here tomorrow? And I looked in the screen and I said, I didn't plan on it. And almost 20 months, every day for the first 365 days, every time I think I can say that without it making me emotional, the impact of that hits me. Every single day we went live, sometimes twice a day, COVID information. And so that was the inspiration of it. It just organically happened. My mother asked one question, and the next day I was there, the next day, and here we are 20 months later.
That is a beautiful, beautiful thing, because nobody knew what was going to happen as the pandemic just went absolutely out of control really, really fast. And everybody's eyes were glued on the television and, trying to figure out, what do we do? How do we protect our families? So it's really beautiful that you created a space for us to be able to go to and get community, input and community news and community updates, because sometimes that misses us, correct?
Very much so. We don't get all the information all the time, but I'm not going to be shady and I'm going to behave.
This is absolutely a safe space, no shade to anybody, anywhere in the universe. We talking about Java with Jimmy. So what are the focal points of the platform now and today?
The focal points of the platform are inclusive, of course, of COVID. I kept trying to get away from that. I'm still on the road of trying to get away from that. But according to the Medical Intelligence Center report I got a couple of days ago, Boston's numbers are going up. It includes COVID. We did not tell people to go get vaccinated. What we did was tell folks to do the research, listen to the data and the science. And so it's COVID, vaccination, mental health is a huge part of Java with Jimmy. We have mental health Mondays. We've had clinicians in the room. Self-care is a component of Java with Jimmy. Also politics and mobilization and advocacy spaces you move in. Trying to, as you said a few minutes ago, trying to make sure that people get the information. The most recent one was when BPS, for parents who had children who wanted to be in the pool for that whole exam school thing, they didn't publicize the fact that you needed to get your information into your local welcoming center. And so making sure that people have information, COVID, vaccination, politics, mental health, Black mental wealth, and talking about the correlation between our mentality, everything that we deal with, systemic oppression and whatnot, but also realizing that we need to invest in our wealth, and wealth is not just green and money. And we're going to talk about some other types of green in a few minutes, but those are the components.
Yes, those are very dynamic conversations. I personally really appreciated the Mental Health Mondays in the midst of the pandemic, because when you start the show, you always want people to just put in the comments what their mood was for the day and how they're feeling for the day. And it's important sometimes just to let it out, just to say it so that you feel like you're being received, and you receive people so well and you respond to people so well. So I appreciate that as well.
Thank you, ma'am.
So we have watched the platform grow, and it's exciting to see so many different changes. You've pivoted. You've definitely killing it with the branding. How many of you have a Java with Jimmy cafe cup, a mug? If I'm not mistaken, there will be one. They're on sale today.
They are on sale today for $20. Shout out to Arnold, a Black-owned business. I would say 95% of my purchases and support have been to Black and brown businesses only, but shout out to Arnold that did that. The cups are for sale for $20, but we have, like Rachel has the original hoodie on. I got the second iteration of the hoodie. We have now 3 iterations of the mugs. And so we got a new one over here that I didn't know about. Y'all can't see him in the camera, but Newt Witten put Java with Jimmy on his sleeve. You notice he promoted his own brand in the back, but he only got one. I'm saying. But
he has an exclusive.
It is exclusive, but I have to give shout out to Props, 2 of them actually. Props from Boston, both are from Boston, but Props also in Atlanta. Danny that really got on me and stepped up and got me away from taking a half an hour to create flyers. Now it's only 3 minutes, and I'm sure you can appreciate that.
I absolutely can. Branding is very important. Everywhere I go, I've been in Atlanta with this gentleman, Miami with this gentleman. He doesn't play about Java with Jimmy, okay? That's just his fit for the day. It's not just a day-to-day thing. He's with the fits all the time, and I love to see it.
No story, sir.
We're amplifying Black-owned spaces. So again, the Underground Cafe and Lounge is a beautiful space in the city of Boston. We're really happy to be here. Can we just give a round of applause for us holding space in the city of Boston? I see a lot of beautiful people in the room today. I'm really happy to have you join us. I have one more question for you, and then we're going to get into this green space panel.
Yes, ma'am.
What was just give me a couple of your favorite shows. Obviously not favorites, maybe not favorites, but the ones that stood out to you.
I think one of the main shows, and it's interesting, and Toy can appreciate this, and some others that knew this young woman, I realized that I had the ability to hold space. I was going to do it last night. Some of you may have heard of a horrible incident, domestic violence incident, where a young woman was killed in Lowell. Their families are from Boston, and so I got ready to do it last night. I would say that one of them that really stands out to me is where Irvine Golston passed. And we looked online, and I mean, my timeline was just filled with mourning, celebrating her life. And so I went live that night, and the people came in the room, and we just, mourned her. We celebrated her. And it was a space created because I knew the community was in a great deal of mourning. So that was one of, as you said, maybe not favorite, but one of my most memorable ones. I would say the other one is the day after the preliminary election, when now who is our mayor came on, and we just really talked. And I remember asking her, I said, say good morning without smiling, and she couldn't do it. You know what I mean? And so I would say anyone that has prompted people to go get tested, People have hit me up, at least 4 or 5 people, and say they got the vaccination because of the platform and getting the information. And so I know there's still varying opinions about it, but just the ability to share information and mobilize and bring our community together is the favorite part, I guess, of this.
Thank you so much for allowing me to interview you on your own platform. Congratulations on all of your success. Thank you for what you do for us and for the community. I do want to say this, urban media is a very dynamic portion of our growth and our elevation. So I see some media outlets in the room. I see some organizations that amplify our culture, and I just want to encourage you all to keep doing what you do and make sure that you keep it true to the community.
Thank you. Give me a hug. If you all watch, this is a very organic space. I have all this. Thank you. You all can give, I was going to say Miss Toy. We going back. Y'all can give Miss Toy, Remy, Chanel, R&B, and Chill a hand. I want to, first of all, apologize. We started a few minutes late and just I got 5011 texts. I'm on my way. But I really, if you all know, one of the components of Java with Jimmy is definitely a space, a faith space. And so I have a good friend. She's a charter member of Java with Jimmy in the room. I'm going to ask her just from her seat, because if you've seen her or know her, she can go in prayer real quick, a long time. And so I would like to ask my good friend, I call her a spiritual mother, who has definitely been here for me for years. And I want to ask Pastor Heidi, Elder, she said no, Elder Heidi Ivy now, to just stand in her place and just acknowledge God. It's been only his grace and mercy that has taken us, this far. And for those of you that don't know, this was not ever a desired space. If you know me well, I was either going to run a nonprofit or be somebody's pastor. And so I really have to thank God for this evolution into what's now Java with Jimmy. So at this time, we're going to, Elder, actually, I probably, because of some tech, we're going to ask you to come up here so you can be on camera. Yes. And the people need to hear you. And so we haven't got all the wonderful budgeting from, to be a whole mobile setup. So come on, Elder Heidi, y'all give her a hand as she comes. That's cool, man. Right there's cool. You can come right here. Right there. And then let me just make sure you're on camera. Probably put it up a little, just a teeny bit. Perfect. Thank you, sir. Go ahead, ma'am. Pray.
Father, in Jesus' name, we bless you today. We honor your great name for who you are. You are good and you are kind, and we say thank you today. We thank you, Lord, for this one-of-a-kind occasion. We thank you, Lord God, for allowing us to be in this room to witness, Lord, what you have been doing over the last 20 months. Father, I pray now for my friend, my brother, my nephew. I love him so much, God. I pray for him. I pray, God, that you would continue to open doors. I pray, God, that doors would open, Lord, that he did not even seek, that his name, God, would be noised about in rooms that he doesn't even know existed. I thank you, Lord God, for this broadcast. Have your way in it and through it. Bless, God, those that are on the panels. Have your way in their lives, expand their borders as well in Jesus' name. Oh, and thank you, Lord, for the Underground Cafe and the owner of it, oh Lord, and for allowing her to open up this space that we might come. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right, I did well. Just a little moisture, no tears. And so I'm going to ask Rob to come back. We're pretty good with the panel. No, we're good, bro. I think we're good. I'll play with the phone just a little bit to your right. I think we'll be good. Perfect. They don't need to see me too much. And so I first would like to thank all of the panelists. First of all of you that came today. I see very familiar faces in the house. I see original Java family charter members and fam back there, and brothers that I've known for a long time. And so I appreciate all of you. And I especially want to thank my panelists that are here. We're going to jump right in because we're a few minutes behind. And so the theme for today is called Green Space. And that theme, thank you all, so I can take this off. That theme is really based on understanding the change in Massachusetts when it comes to the cannabis industry, as well as Black equity as we were so the difference between how things were when we were busted for marijuana and the difference between, powdered coke and crack and whatnot. And so we need to have Black equity when it comes to the cannabis industry here in the city of Boston, the state of Massachusetts, and around the country. And so it is my pleasure today to introduce a few folks that are moving in this space. One, I've seen his work for a long time, and his title is just a cannabis advocate. This young lady I was referred to, shout out to Sharice Perry, attorney Sharice Perry, that hooked me up with the young lady that's on the panel, and also another young man that's doing some great things, not just in the field of cannabis, but also in developing our Black and brown young boys. And so this is the first live with this condensed mic. And so I hope that it does what it needs to do, especially for y'all that are listening on Facebook, but I may have to ask my panelists to kind of project toward the mic and use their outside voice a little bit. And so I'm going to start, of course, with ladies first. And if you could introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you do, and then describe the cannabis industry in Massachusetts when it comes to Black equity in one word. What Jeff said? Jeff said, how would you describe Black equity when it comes to the cannabis industry in Boston in one word? Wanted. Okay. All right. Okay. Absolutely. Thank you. And I'm going to save my boy for last. Jeff, I had the pleasure of meeting this young man some months ago. I actually got to do some yoga with him once. Shout out to Yoga Mike. Jeff, if you could please introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about Low Key and some other things you're doing. And then if you could describe the cannabis industry in Boston when it comes to Black equity in one word as well. The other one is describe Black equity. For those of you that are listening on Facebook, we're working out the sound thing and also in the house as well. And so we're going to get that. Sorry, you missed Jeff's. Couldn't hear him clearly, but we're working that out now. And so Jeff, just do me a favor and test that real quick.
Jeff.
Perfect. There we go. Okay, this is an organic space, guys. And so the other thing would be Black equity in one word when it comes to the cannabis industry here in Boston.
I mean, I think it's kind of hard for me to say due to the fact that, you know, as I mentioned, cannabis, I mean, real estate is the focal point, right? So I think understanding real estate is probably, you know, what I'll say.
So real estate, because I'm gonna keep you to one word.
Yeah.
Okay.
Real
All
estate.
right.
I mean, it's 2 words. I didn't want to, you know.
No, you good. You good. I always mess with people with the one
Buildings.
word piece. You're good, brother. You're good. Chief, sir, please, because you're actually one of the first people I met and was aware of that was advocating and using actions and activism around this. And so you've been doing this for a little bit, sir. So please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you do. There's a certain brand there's a strain of green that you had produced. And you can tell folks about that. But yes, sir.
No, thank you, Jimmy, and greetings to Java with Jimmy audience, and thanks to the Underground Cafe and Lounge here. Happy to be here. My name is Sia Samora, but most people know me by my nickname of Chief. And I ran a private cannabis club called Mass Bay Cannabis for years here during the medical marijuana interregnum, when a lot of people had medical cards. There wasn't really a lot of resources for them. I became a service provider. I started actively helping these people, and I created a club called Mass Bay Cannabis, and I think Jimmy knows me from that time. But I'm also became a local cannabis rights activist and entrepreneur. And so my wife and I created Purient Bedroom Cannabis. It's a cannabis-infused personal lubricant that you can go and get on the shelves here in Massachusetts at licensed dispensaries. And I'm also the CEO of Yamba Market, which is a planned retail dispensary in Central Square, Cambridge, to open this January. So I'm heavily in this cannabis space. I've been a part of this cannabis space and looking to help others and grow the environment in the best way. And so when you ask for one word to sum up Black cannabis here in Boston and Massachusetts, I would say, if I could choose one word, I would say opportunity. And I would say there's a lot of opportunity all around, because there's still a lot of work to be done. And so there's opportunity for people to get into the space. There's opportunity for those people to be supported. There's opportunity, tons of opportunity is still there. You know, not a terrible lot has been done, but there is opportunity developing.
Let me throw a question to you and then we'll pass the mic. The advertisement, the awareness of the opportunity. Lori, you said wanted, and Jeff, you talked about real estate, but what is the awareness level, like the state or the city of Boston? How are they making folks aware of the resources, resources that are available, and how to go about becoming either a distributor or a grower? Yeah.
Well, that's a very interesting question, and I'll try not to get in trouble with that one, because, you know, we're coming into a new administration here in Boston, which is very exciting.
Yep.
Previous administration had their stuff, and however much they supported these businesses, that was kind of their own thing. So I'm looking forward to actually the new Chief of Economic Development.
Shout out to Shagun Idawu.
Very, very positive developments there, I believe.
Yep.
And so I think we're going to see more opportunity mined and developed there with this new administration in Boston. But previously, these electeds weren't supporting legal cannabis, you know, and so they weren't really supporting the people that were pushing it or the businesses.
Okay. Lori, in your experience and working and supporting different entities and working on your own work, what have you seen as some of the challenges, not just in Boston, but I believe you do some work across the state? What are the challenges when it comes to Black and brown owners? And if you could clarify and teach us, so there are distributors or dispensaries,
There are dispensaries.
there are growers, any other?
You're correct. I'm going to take like maybe 10. It's going to take, okay, let me just get into this. There's about 10 licenses that exist in this state. So we can start from the first one, cultivation. They cultivate, you can have up to 100,000 square feet. Then there's product manufacturers. Those are people who make your infusions, your topicals. His product would fall under a product of product manufacturing. Then you have what I call your BOGO, buy one, get one free licenses, where they combine them and you get 2 in 1. So one is a micro business where you can have 5,000 square feet of cultivation with manufacturing, or you can have something called a macro business where you have 100,000 square feet of canopy in 3 places for product manufacturing. Then you have research facilities, testing laboratories. You have transporters who actually act as Amazon/FedEx, so they can warehouse products, but they can only sell business to business. I think I got all of them. If not, retail is the main one, and delivery. There's delivery, and then there's social consumption, which is not available currently.
What's the difference between social consumption and recreational use?
Oh, that's great. Recreational use really is the umbrella regarding the ability for adults 21 years and older to consume cannabis. Recreational use refers to the entire industry. When what was the other one you asked between? Social consumption is a location just like here where you'd be able to come in and buy cannabis and consume it on site. The most difficult aspects of getting into the industry you asked. Just like, the entire universe, 7 is a powerful number here, and there are 7 aspects to entering the space. 4 of them is on the local level. He mentioned real estate. Real estate is the most difficult aspect because you have to find a piece of property that is zoned in a place that the city or town has said you can operate there. So places like, there are places where you can't be within 100 feet of a residence. In Boston, you can't be within half a mile of another marijuana shop. So that barrier itself poses an issue, part 1. Part 2, you need to hold this property for the entire time while you're going through licensing, which could be anywhere from 6 months if you got dough to which is to like a year, 2 years. It took me 4 years to get through the process. And you're holding on to the property, paying money for the whole time. So we're talking about economic barriers. Now, that's a great segue. Marijuana is still federally illegal. So where are we going to get this money from? Banks are not loaning us. And let the record show, banks aren't even loaning white women money. What makes us think we would be the recipient of the institutional funding that's currently available? So banks weren't even an option to us to begin with. So it's access to funding, access to real estate. These regulations are difficult even for attorneys to navigate. And so those are the biggest hurdles to navigating the licensing process. I think there has been a lot of things done, like Boston has a grant program where they give $15,000. They're trying to give people access to education and resources. Nonetheless, it's tough. It's a game for the rich and the savvy, or, people who got ancestors rocking with them and
left them a little inheritance. And so, Jeff, let's jump to you, because out of everybody that I've seen going into the business, because of our engagement on social media, I've watched your progress. You have the old liquor store that's coming in Codman Square soon. I've seen the progress there, which is right down the street from me. And so talk a little bit about what Lori and Chief, and you don't mind if I keep referring to you Chief, because that's what talk to us about what you're in right now. You got approved for zoning, you have the property. Are you still facing barriers as a Black man trying to move into this business?
Absolutely. I think funding has been the most challenging as far as barriers for me personally. I actually met Chief early on 2016. He was one of the first guys that actually called me looking for real estate in Boston. And I'm like, well, what is this guy talking about? Like cannabis being legal in Massachusetts? All right, we'll figure this thing out. Then a year or so later, that I met Lori. So all these things came up, basically play a role into me understanding this process, right? So when 2018, 2019 came to play, as a real estate agent, I already knew how to leverage properties to to get funding. So I knew that was going to be a challenge. But like Lori said, how do you carry a property for 2 years, having to make a payment? So that property, I basically negotiated to pay double for it than what it was worth. So I could have the 2 years to get to that place. Okay. You know what I mean? So instead of me having to pay monthly payment or
savvy, as Lori said.
Exactly, savvy, right? So the property was actually reason I even got into that place. I had the property under agreement for at least a year and a half, actually. So I mean, I'm about 2018, so 2022. So I closed on the property earlier this year. So let's say 3 years, right? So a year and a half, I actually had the property under agreement with Dunkin' Donuts to actually go in there. Then Dunks decided to they didn't want the space anymore.
out.
They
Yep.
pull out. They actually wanted a space across the street where Popeyes is. So once they pulled out, I had already did my application process. So I was just, learning and going through the process. Then I actually said, wow, that's actually a great space. I know this community. I live down the street, so I think I have a good chance of getting it approved. So a year and a half was already taken from me because Dunkin' Donuts had it under agreement. So for lease, actually, so I basically just, asked the landlord, hey, would we be able to, pay you double and renegotiating to sell the property at that time because she didn't want to go through it. As you know, there was a fire there.
Yep.
So it just made it, like I said, negotiation came into play at that time. So we negotiated pay her, double to make the acquisition. And fast forward to once we got the our provisional license. Now there's real estate, that private lenders could actually put a lien on, right? Because you actually have a tangible asset. Plus, you actually have a business that's actually going to be coming here. That's a multi-million-dollar business that, okay, if they get a piece of it, they know this business is going to be able to sustain and pay off this rent. And if all fails, you can get another business in there. If I can't do it, you get another business in there. But actually, you will always have a piece of a piece of the real estate there. So it was easier at that moment to actually get the real estate, to actually get funding, right? But again, it was just enough money. It's not like, oh, go splurge out and, go out there and do whatever it is. So now we are still doing a raise on Mainvest to actually raise some more capital, to actually do a little bit more marketing and branding to actually get our name out there and kind of be like you and just get the branding going. So, yeah.
I'll start with you with this next set of questions. What is, and this is from actually somebody in the audience, Heidi Ivy is asking, how many jobs have been created for Black and brown people from your knowledge base, Jeff? And if you don't mind, what is your prospectus? If you were fully funded, up and running, you woke up tomorrow morning and everything was perfect. How many prospective jobs went in the industry, if you all know, in Boston or whatever stats you got? And then Jeff, for you, what is the potential of employment with low key?
Me personally, I've visited a lot of dispensaries and cultivations outside of Boston. We're not being represented well in that industry. I could say that
At all levels of employment?
at all levels, definitely. And for me personally, me being the EE Economic Empowerment licensee holder, and my goal is to actually hire people from Carbon Square. So as many people as possible that we could gain from Carbon Square. That's what I would love. You know what I mean? So we recently was in conversation with a general manager that lived in the area. Because again, we want to make sure that people that we hire is from the area, could actually just get up and walk to work, so we don't have issues with people being late. We don't have people burglarizing the place, because again, you got to respect where your community, people that's from your community work and respect it. So we're working with a agency to actually help us with that process, to host a couple of job fairs, to really bring in the talent from the community. Again, me and my partner, we both from Carbon Square, so it would we would love to see people from our community be involved in this industry. One of the things that we are planning on doing as well, given the fact that real estate got me into this industry, real estate got me here, so we want to teach and educate our employees on real estate, how to acquire real estate. And whoever wants to acquire real estate, wants to purchase that, will pay their closing costs at the table. So whenever they get to the point that, okay, whether if it's an investment property or purchase of a home, condo, whatever it is, we'll handhold you, just like Lori did for me, and walk you through the process, educate you through the process, teach you how to make money. Obviously, you could be working in the dispensary, so you should be able to, save some money and have your down payment. So, once you get to a closing table, then, Low-Key Dispensary will help you out with that acquisition. And again, to teach people how to acquire wealth in this industry, and that, in both sides.
And that's really what it's all about. So I need to get you on an episode of Black Mental Wealth as well.
For sure.
Lori, I saw you shaking your head. I don't know if you have some stats, but I know that look when you want to say something as far as the either barriers around employment or attempts to employ Black and brown people. Jeff talked to the fact that the numbers are off when it comes to all levels of employment in this industry. And so I saw a look. What was that? What caused that look?
It's the fact that there is very little diversity. So if you look on the Cannabis Control Commission's webpage, they have open data. And I don't know how up to date this is, but if you look at agents include owners, everyone who works in the industry has to be registered. 4% of all those registrations are Black. And then nationally, 2% of all marijuana owners are Black. So when we talk about a minority, you're looking at the minority of the minority sitting here. And the reason why you see such a disparity is because of top down. Consciousness comes from the top and it trickles down. And no matter how much you want to pretend and label it with words like equity, masking the separation, your consciousness of division, it still permeates. So that's what you're seeing, y'all. You're seeing individuals who have no consciousness of the purpose of unity. They see no value in it. And now they're trying to perform unity. But when you're performing something that is not intrinsically you, right? Darkness is always revealed. So that's why we see 98% of the industry being owned by people who are not Black owned, people who did not suffer the heat of injustice, right? Their skins have never been burnt by the harshness of the war on drugs, but they get to sweep in and take in the benefits like the carpetbaggers that they are. Okay? I mean, I didn't want to come here and just choose violence, but I am a Haitian woman.
This is
and we are at war.
authentic space. Do you, sis? Sharice knew what I was. Do you tell the truth? Because we need this information to be out there for people to understand the barriers so they can develop strategies with folks like you around them. But knowledge is power.
Right. And the reason I framed it like that is because I didn't want it to come as if it's a malicious thing, as if like I don't want to see Black people. They be coming in here. How do I get more Black people in here? How about you stop asking me how you get more Black people in here? Hire somebody who looks like me, and then their consciousness will naturally ooze that consciousness. You can't be in that, like, it's like for even me, I can be aware I'm not a man. So if I wanted more males, what would I do? I'd call men and be like, bro, get some, because I know I am humbled by my own ignorance. Do you feel me?
I do.
So like, I'm not going to pretend like I know some I don't, which is what they do.
Chief, your thoughts on the economic impact, employment, your observations?
Yeah, that's really good. That's great. And when you were talking about that, I mean, and I was looking at the panel here, this panel actually really is Black cannabis business in Massachusetts. We actually represent close to 5% of the economic empowerment applicants registered and certified in the state. We are the ones, you're looking at the ones that are actually creating the equity in the industry here, and that are designated to be the main engines for hiring the most Black folks, just because of what the economic empowerment certification that Jeff was talking about. We all hold that here.
Can you tell us a little bit in a few words, what is that versus, because I remember either as a city councilor and then she did more things as acting mayor, but Kim Janey was a huge push for the equity piece. And so can you tell us a little bit about what that means?
Right, exactly. And so economic empowerment was a program designed to empower Black folks, POC here in the state, to come into the cannabis industry and lead and create the type of equity that we all wanted to see. And that's why economic empowerment applicants are given a few benefits in the application process, not money or anything, but a few benefits to move faster into the industry, to create that equity that we all want to see, hire more Black folks. And so when you see any of the folks up here hiring people, they're hiring the majority of the Black people that are going to be in the business here in Massachusetts. That's fact. And so you can go to Pure Oasis now, which is a dispensary.
Yep. Shout out to Colby.
Right, the only one I think open in Boston for adult use. And you'll see a bunch of Black people working there, but that's not really representative of the state. And when you think about how the industry has rolled out here in the state, it's really been something that central and western Mass towns have really encouraged more than, say, the city of Boston. So you really have people are being hired and working out there and benefiting from the licensed biz. Meanwhile, here in Boston, we haven't had that support. We haven't had those businesses come forward as fast. And so we have not seen the statewide change as far as a lot of Black people hired. But I'm telling you, it's really about getting those business leaders into position to create the equity that we all want to see. And those business leaders are actually some of the people that you're seeing right here. So congrats to you, Jimmy, for putting this panel together, because really it's something else. You have a lawyer, you have real estate, you have an old school activist. And I would also suggest that for your audience, you briefly define what cannabis social equity means, because as I explained, we all have a different kind of thing here. And I think it's important. Well, I wanted to add this because cannabis equity, there's also health equity involved. It's not just about business, not just about money. It's not just about jobs and working and so on. But when you think about medical cannabis came first, where was the equity for that? Where is the health equity for benefits from cannabis? So it's much, much, much deeper than business and so on, you know, and equity. What is cannabis social equity? It's actually a mindset, a set of policies, behaviors, actions that people take, businesses, consumers, elected leaders, regulators, that they take to create a more equitable and healthy and fair industry, which means really lifting the people who have been most harmed during cannabis prohibition into places of ownership and power and decision making, and where they can benefit from the new licensed business. So think about the grandma whose children have been criminalized for generations.
Yes, sir.
And think about her health needs, and think about how she's still being denied the medical benefits of cannabis at her age after all the generations of her children have been criminalized. So cannabis social equity goes much farther than business.
Yes, sir.
It means that the tax money needs to go back to help and repair that grandma, help her stay in her home, help revisit the damage that cannabis prohibition has done to her family and to her community. And so it's that very deep. And see, you won't really get this whole story from everybody, because social equity means a lot of things to a lot of different folks. Cannabis social equity is a program in Massachusetts. It's a regulation. So that's why I just want to kind of expand what it means. When legal cannabis comes to your community, everyone is entitled to the benefits of that legal cannabis. And that's not just a business, it's not just a job, but it's the medical benefits and the education that comes with that too. And for people that have high rates of diabetes, stress,
Anxiety,
hypertension, anxiety, all these things, to deny them any effective remedy. Yeah, so yeah, especially when you talk about your grandma and stuff, see, I start getting chills, because that's wrong.
Yes, sir.
And so that's what really a lot of these folks are doing. We're changing that reality. We're changing that culture, and we're making sure that the benefits of legalized cannabis are accessible to the community, to all community members, even if they don't like weed. That really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
Thank you for that. And it's funny because you wound up, because you wound up going into, I wanted to think about next steps as we get ready. We got to kind of catch up with time to be sensitive to our second panel and the venue. And so that was perfect. Thank you so much, Chief. And so Lori jumped right in, and now we're getting into what are some of the next steps? You want to build upon what he said. So I'll shut up and then go to the next, because I don't want you to lose that thought.
The thought was just going to be this: medical marijuana is the root of why you see so much disparity in economic empowerment, because they categorically ban anybody with a criminal record from participating in the industry. So if you had a marijuana charge, you couldn't own a medical marijuana store. You needed $500,000 to even apply. And then they gave those same medical marijuana facilities priority without even opening to serve the patients they claimed they wanted to serve. And so now they had the money to go take up all the properties that were zoned properly. And now we're left scrambling with no access to money, no access to real estate. So this was planned. This is why Big Mama's a little spicy. People call me Goya for a reason. So that's the part we have to always be aware. I always tell people we are at war with the consciousness of division. Unless you're aware of that, you're a pawn being used.
Wait. Say that again. We are what? At war?
At war with the consciousness of division.
What's division?
Division, the consciousness that tells you and I are separate. So therefore, once I separate you and me, I can hate you and do whatever I want to you. My purpose for existing is to demolish that consciousness and remind people that you and I are the same. We're rooted in love. And the only thing that exists is love. And even this whole marijuana disparity, us versus them, is designed to keep you locked in fear so that you don't elevate to your true divinity.
I mean that right there, it sums it up, because that's not necessarily a next step. That's a philosophical sort of approach. And so, Jeff,
Go find out who you are. That's the next step. Know thyself.
go a little bit deeper.
Know thyself. Well, thousands of years ago, our ancestors knew they would be taken into slavery, so they inscribed instructions for us into the pyramid walls. The only instruction they gave us that survived, and it said this: know thyself, and you will know the universe and the gods. So if you want to go, and then my ancestor, right before going into the civil liberation for Haiti, they asked him, how do you go liberate yourself? He said, don't ask me. The spirit of liberty lives within you. You go ask yourself what it is you need to do to free yourself from the slavery. And they each did that and then freed themselves.
And see, this is applicable to more than
So know
just
yourself.
equity in the black equity in the marijuana, in the cannabis industry. If you really heard what she was saying, this can be applied to everything, every single solitary thing. Jeff, take us home, sir. In reference to what do you see as some of the next steps? I just want to put a bug in your ear. I live in Common Square, so once the careers page goes up on low key, and so Jeff, in all seriousness, what do you see as next steps for the community? And I would ask you, based on, you didn't talk a lot about it, but this brother conducts or curates a group called Kings Amongst Kings. And so I'm going to ask you, Jeff, in the context of young men that either have charges based on what Lori just said, what Chief talked about, what can they do in some entry level next steps to get into the industry?
I mean, everything Lori just said, I couldn't say any better than you, right? But I think it's at this point is really for us to organize, just really have an understanding of what's at stake here, come together, have a plan, and for us to really execute and how to get more Black people into this industry, how to educate more people on, like I said, first and foremost, mental, right? Get your mental right, and really understand the real estate landscape, right? And like Lori just said, in 2016, the moment that it became legal, all these MSO started coming to Massachusetts, acquiring all the real estate where you could cultivate, right? And being a medical industry, being a medical company, you are vertically integrated. So meaning that you could have your cultivation in one or two dispensaries. And what these also cultivations centers does is now they wholesale to everybody else. So they take over the cultivation aspect, right? So now we can't get into.
Hold on. Why does that sound like street game? Some BMF type?
I mean, that's really what it is. It's really what it is. So when again, I've been doing my research, and I'm going out there in Western Mass. So all these MSOs have 100,000 acres of cultivation site, that costs millions of dollars that we can't get access to either acquire the real estate, to build out the space, and have. Obviously, most Black people probably live in Boston, so we can't go to a Franklin, to a Holyoke, and whatever neighborhood that's saying, okay, come in. You could get in without the barriers that Boston has, right? So it's easy to get it out there. The real estate is cheaper. The access of entry is a bit more lenient. So we don't have the information, we don't have the education, we don't have the money. And we also now united for us to come together and actually say, okay, let's do it together. So I think once we all understand that, and we can say, well, you know what, let's all come together, plan, organize, and we can actually get something done.
Go ahead, Chief.
Thanks a lot. How can folks get into the biz? Yamba Market is hiring right now. Yamba Market Central Square is hiring right now. Folks, you can go to yambamarket.com. We have a careers page. We have job descriptions up right there. Share it with other folks.
Can you spell it for us, bro?
Yamba is YAMBA Market. And so Yamba is actually kind of a West African term referring to weed. So let me share this with you, okay? Marijuana, the word marijuana. Folks will pretend they don't know where the word came from. They'll say, "Oh, it's a Spanish word." The word marijuana comes from an African word, mariamba. So mariamba was the word used for marijuana during the transatlantic slave trade. We're talking about 1500s, something like that. As the term came to Central America, with the Central American accent, mariamba became marijuana. Mariamba became marijuana. You see?
Yes, sir.
So it's still yamba in West Africa and other different parts, and other variations of that term, jamba, stuff like that. But this is where the term comes from. It comes from Africa, folks. Marijuana, yeah. Mariamba into marijuana. So yambamarket.com. We're hiring now, but Major Blue, all these folks will be hiring soon if they're not already. We are creating that change, and we are putting people into the biz. So that's just one way, you know what I mean, is hiring. But other ways, of course, bring your skill set into the cannabis biz and transfer that in. So when I say getting the benefits of a licensed cannabis business, you do a podcast, right? You can now bring that podcast to serve the cannabis industry. You do security, you can now bring that security to do business in the cannabis industry. Do you do products? Do you brand stuff? Do you market? All of these people are needed in the cannabis industry, and we are the folks helping to create a lot of that. And so that's what the economic empowerment program is about. It's about putting folks in position to be able to actually create that change and not just talk about it.
Got you. Jeff, unless Jeff sparks something in Lori, this will be our last comment because we have the second panel. We're going to take a break as well. And so, Jeff, you'll wrap up unless you spark something. And I see that face in Lori.
No, I just wanted to say as well, Loki Dispensary is also hiring. So LokiDispensary.com. We have a careers page as well. So accepting application currently. And as Chief will say, somebody that's looking to get into this cannabis industry, whatever skill set that you have in whatever industry that you're in, you know, us Black folks or, you know, need your services, whether you're an accountant, whether you, you know, security, whatever business that you have, you know, you're a blogger, you're a writer, you know, we need people to write about us, about whatever it is that's going on. So there's also a lane for you to get into this industry, and whatever it is that you're doing, it's just a decision that you just have to make. And, you know, whether it goes against your religion or whatever it is, you know, that's on you. But there's a lot of opportunity to get into this industry. It's $1 billion industry. It's new, it's fresh. Whatever it is that you do, and, you know, currently you could easily translate it into here. And that's exactly what I did. My skill set is business development, business management. In real estate, I literally leveraged that, got into it, and started up the business and creating the business and brought in the talent that I needed to help me run my business. So again, whatever skill set, whatever it is that you do, is just connecting with the right people. Just, you know, walk into, you know, whether it's Major Bloom, whether it's Yamba Market, whether it's Seed, whether it's Legal Greens or Pure Oasis, you know, whatever dispensaries, ask to speak to the CEO, you know, leave your card, you know, call them up, follow up, you know, get in touch with somebody. If they're not answering you, you know, go on LinkedIn, you know, usually everybody's on LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever it is, you know, find them, get in contact with them, send them an email, ask them for lunch, you know, bring them over here and do whatever it is that you have to do to get a meeting and present them, you know, your ideas. I have a friend of mine that literally one day he just pulled up on me and, you know, told me about his not dispensary, his product line. And next thing I know, this guy's in 11 stores from that conversation that we had early in May this year. And, you know, he's just at every event talking to people and just following up. So anybody can get into this industry. It's just a decision you got to make. So sure.
I knew it. Come on, Lori,
Dude,
close us out.
so everybody thinks you need a license to get in the industry. You do not. What you need is a white label deal. You need somebody who has a cultivation or product manufacturer or retail who's willing to buy products for you and have you make the products yourself. You can go from needing $1 million to $15,000 to get in the industry if you know how to do it correctly and have the right connections. I'm actually going to be teaching a course on this because I got fed up with people telling me they can't get in the industry when we got Black people who own manufacturing facilities. We got a Black man who owns cultivation. We got Black retail. If y'all want to get in the space, holla at us, and you can get in our stores, and we'll make it happen. And that's how we do group economics, and we do what we got to do to the system to really help each other expand. So that's it. Last thing I'll say, you are loved. Never forget that. And the moment you start thinking you're not, you're in a state of illusion. Tap back into your heart, and things will start unfolding into the correct way again. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Let's give them a hand. Let's give our panelists a hand, everybody. I just want to name a few things that I heard that we need to walk away with. One, all the skill sets, Lori, that you talked about around unity. All of you talked about unity at some point and us coming together. It is definitely obvious that we need to have and curate more of these conversations with the intention, with the intentionality of my brother just threw me off. With the intentionality of educating. That's what the whole platform is, educating, mobilization. And so please, we're going to take about a 10 to 15 minute break. To my second set of panelists, I thank you in advance for your patience. We're going to do our best to stay on schedule, Brother Chef here. And so we're going to follow up. Those of you that are watching on Facebook, we're going to come back. We're going to turn off now so the DJ can play what he wants and not kick us off of Facebook. So we're going to take a 10-minute break. We will warn you when it's time to get ready to come back. Is there any house announcements? Are we good? Please make sure you go and support this Black-owned business. I've seen some folks sipping and drinking, but please make sure you go and get something to eat and go and introduce yourselves and talk to these people, because there's all type of economic development out there. Maybe different opinions about weed or whatever. There's CBD that don't get you high, but it has the same impact, and we won't get into the philosophical conversation of it. One more hand for our panelists, and we'll be back with you in about 12 to 15 minutes most.